This is Madden Benz Unfiltered. Tim Benz and Mark Madden with you. Mark from 105.9 The X. You can hear him Monday through Friday, 3 until 6. Myself, Breakfast with Benz. Check me out daily at Breakfast with Benz here at Trib Live. Mark and I recorded our podcast that we always do Madden Monday a little early yesterday. Mark went to the Eagles concert. We will review that later. So some things we didn't get to on the podcast. Let's get to those now, Mark. First and foremost, what happened in the AFC North while the Steelers were off? Everybody else won.
Yeah, leave it to the Steelers to lose during a bye week. And all the games were within one score, but the Browns, Bengals, and Ravens all pulled it out, and that ain't good. Somebody's going to have to finish below the Steelers, if you know what I mean. Like, the Steelers are going to climb above everybody. People are going to drop below them. And I have very little faith the Steelers can do any better than 9-8 or make the playoffs. But for that to happen, qualify for the postseason, teams got to stumble in their division. Now, the Steelers are 2-0 in the division, which is very encouraging, but nothing was encouraging about the way things went down this past weekend. And my God, Cleveland upsetting San Francisco with the third-string quarterback. What's his name? P.J. Walker?
Yes. Yeah.
Where's he from? I never heard of him. Who saw that coming?
Exactly. They had some in-game injuries that complicated things, but, that's a win the Browns just aren't supposed to get. The Steelers certainly didn't get it. They got blown out by San Francisco to start the year. And I'm starting to wonder if the Bengals are back on track and Burrow's healing now.
Well, they didn't exactly sparkle, but they won. And I think, they're going to get better and better as he gets healthier and healthier. One thing I want to say about that Cleveland win over San Francisco. I know San Francisco got crippled in-game by Debo and McCaffrey getting hurt, but that shows the difference between the Browns having a legitimately good defense and the Steelers having a defense that just has a couple good players on it. Because San Francisco run roughshod over the Steelers defense, and the Browns ran roughshod over the 49ers offense, handing Brock Purdy his first regular season loss. And by the way, I got sick of that quick. Steelers fans everywhere, in fact, on X, burying Purdy after he finally loses a regular season game in his second season of starting. Kid's a real good quarterback, much better than Kenny Pickett. But the Browns have a real defense. The Steelers have a few good players on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and speaking of quarterback matchups, Mark, ones that were analogous from the 2021 draft, the Steelers might actually get Malik Willis now, depending on how bad this ankle injury is for Ryan Tannehill that he suffered in England.
Wouldn't that be great?
How about that big showdown, Pickett and Malik Willis? After all the hype, we might actually get it on that Thursday night game on the 2nd.
Goes to show you what a bad draft that really was for quarterbacks, Tim.
I guess, yeah. Tannehill and, let's see, between now and then, the Steelers have the Rams, and then they've got the Jaguars, then that game against the Titans, and the Packers before they get Cleveland. They go back in division for 2 weeks against the Browns and Bengals. This is a real big stretch, Mark, because the Steelers have to make hay, given what we just talked about with the division. This is normally where the Steelers do get good. This is where the Steelers tend to make up ground and get themselves to 500 all the time. And they're not playing great coming out of this bye, even though they are at 3-2.
If they're supposed to have a chance to win the division, they need to go 3-1 against these teams. Next 4 games, 3-1, no debate. Got to do it.
I'm really worried about what they're going to do with Cooper Kupp, because the opposing number 1 wide receiver is really giving the Steelers problems all year long. And they've got 2 really good number 2 and 3 receivers, Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua. Those guys kept Los Angeles afloat until Kupp came back. Now Kupp is back. He looks like he's in top form.
Puka Nacua sounds like a routine in Wayne's World. I think that game's a toss-up. Is there a line out on that game yet, Tim?
Yeah, Steelers are 3.5-point underdogs.
That's about right. Here's the thing about the Rams. The Rams ain't that good no more, but they have enough guys who remember winning a Super Bowl where they don't understand that they're not good. So I don't think they're going to play below the Steelers. I think they'll go into that game really expecting to beat the Steelers. One thing, too, I want to point out. We always like to talk about how a Tomlin team finishes strong. How about a Tomlin team starts strong for a change?
Well, that's part of the narrative.
Early in the season?
That's part of the narrative. You can't have him be a strong starter and then still always go with the whole thing about, well, he always keeps the team pointed in the right direction when things look like they're getting steered into the rocks. He gets them back in the water again. That whole thing that we hear from the national media all the time.
Yeah, and half the time the plane has already hit the side of the mountain, to quote the Big Lebowski. Yeah, I think he's I said this on the podcast. I repeat it now. I'll say it again on my show at 3 p.m. He's an absolute fraud. And by the time he's done coaching, everyone out there will agree with me.
What do you think they're going to do coming out of the bye in terms of changes? Anything?
No, that would require coaching and imagination.
And admitting they're wrong on something.
I don't know. What would you change?
I definitely have Porter start and play more. That's for sure.
Obviously. I'd have all the rookies start. I mean, right now, Broderick Jones is because he has to. Because make no mistake, if Moore was healthy, Moore would still be starting. And Keanu Benton should get the bulk of snaps where he's at. And Porter. But didn't Austin say that Porter's not yet ready to start?
Yeah.
I mean, how much more ready does he have to friggin' be? And how much less ready do Levi Wallace and Pat Pete need to be?
Well, yeah.
You
That's the big
thing. Over, Tim. They're done on this side.
That's the big thing, is that we keep hearing that the biggest problem with Porter right now is his tackling in the open field. Well, my God, what have we seen from Wallace and Peterson in that regard? At least Patrick Peterson, Joey Porter's going to be closer to guys to have a better shot of tackling them. He's going to be better in coverage in the first place to make the tackle. And
here's the other thing, too. That's just excuse making to pretend he's not ready to stick to their, breaking in rookies slowly policy. If they're going to wait till he's an accomplished tackler, I'm afraid I've got some bad news, because that's not his gimmick. Okay, Deion Sanders never became an accomplished tackler. Joey Porter Jr. is a cover guy. He's already very good at that. Let him do it.
One change the public seems to be clamoring for that I don't think you want to make, Mark, is the running back. Like, you still want to see Najee be the number one guy, right?
Well, no. I mean, I think Warren's shown more than Najee so far. I mean, not so much more that it's an overwhelming, by acclamation, decision to do the switcheroo there. But if they did it, I wouldn't object to it at this point, no.
You know who else has been a little quiet in terms of making big plays is Minka.
Well, yeah, I have a theory about that. I talked about that on the show last week. He's trying to do too much. He's trying to spy on one guy, get to the line and help against the run. He's trying to be the guy, at the top of the defense. He's getting caught betwixt and between, and as a result, not making the tangible impact you need a guy like him to make. But I'm not sure I blame him. Again, that goes back to what I think is the fact. Tim, that defense in terms of yards per play is in the bottom quarter of the league. The bottom quarter of the league. That's not a good defense. It's a defense that is meh with a few real good players, and we overestimate it badly because of those few good players.
Yeah, and they have a penchant to make splash plays, which makes things look a lot better and erases some other mistakes that they might have.
Well, and there's something to be said for that. Besides all the sacks, they got 5 picks. So, yeah, I get that. And that's better than having a mad defense that doesn't do that.
Let's get to the Penguins, Mark, because they've actually gotten off to a pretty interesting start. They've had a couple of exciting games, and they flashed too, and they've gotten off to a 2-1 start over the first 3 games. They lost the opener 4-2. Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks win here, then they go on the road and win in D.C., and they win back here again against the Calgary Flames. They won't have to do back-to-back games for quite a while now. I think the 19th and 20th or something like that. The next time you'll see the Penguins go back-to-back. But they got the 2 back-to-back wins over the weekend, and we see the difference. When the star players score, when the star players make plays, they're tough to beat. It's just how much can they lean on these guys?
Well, they might have to. I mean, the bottom 6 don't have a goal yet. The defensemen don't have a goal yet, which that's going to change. Defensive scoring has an element of randomness to it. Like some guys will pile up the chances, like I'm sure Carlson and Letang will, where the randomness works in their favor after a while. Capiche? But that bottom 6, I don't know if it's going to score. I mean, you tell me, who on that bottom 6 has hands besides maybe Lars Eller? And
yeah, I don't even know what his hands are really like. And they're so strapped now, Mark. I don't know how much flexibility they have to really go out and get a guy at any point to help the bottom 6.
Oh, no. What Dubas has done is he stockpiled all them bottom 6 guys that are, got cleared waivers and sent on to Wilkes. I think it'll be a rotating cast between Wilkes and here, trying to find guys who catch fire and do better than for a little bit. But in terms of a 82-game answer, I don't think so. I mean, Drew O'Connor, it's a shame he just has no hands.
Does he have to play in a top 2 line to get points?
I hope not, because he ain't never gonna, barring injury.
Yeah, well, there'll be an injury eventually, and he might get boosted up. And then the question is,
I'm not rooting for that, though. I mean,
yeah,
I think Drew O'Connor's like an okay third liner because of his, his size. I wouldn't say he plays overly physical, but then again, almost nobody in the league does, and he can skate pretty good. But that's all he got.
Of the new guys on the Penguins, who do you like the most? Is it Carlson for sure? Is it Riley Smith playing with Gino? Is it Graves and how he's part?
Carlson, then Riley Smith. Yeah, I like Graves though too.
I think we saw a little hint from Letang that he was maybe a little nervous about how that was working out after game 1, but it seems to have found some better footing in games 2 and 3, especially in the offense.
He was okay in game 1 even. I thought he was dominant in 2 and 3.
Graves?
No, Letang.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, you're talking about the partnership.
Like the partnership. Yeah, the meshing.
Oh, no, I think Letang feels challenged by Carlson. I thought that's what you were – not mad, but I think he feels challenged by Carlson's presence as in, okay, I'm still the number 1 guy around here, and he's played like it, especially the last 2 games.
The only thing that really differentiates, though, between those two is the power play time, though. I mean, like, I think he's getting the higher-end player as his partner in Graves. Pedersen's good, but I think Graves should be better.
Well, but Pedersen has a real good read on Carlson. I mean,
what's I'm saying?
I mean, Carlson's confusing to the guys he's on the ice with as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who's his partner has to read him to frankly cover, which is almost constant, but not all the time. You can't totally uninvolve yourself as far as the puck goes. So Pedersen's done great.
But I mean, in terms of how you allocate whoever you would call the number 1 guy among defensemen, with the amount of ice time that Letang still gets and the players that he gets to play with, he's either behind Sid or behind Malkin most of the time.
Well, so is Carlson.
Yet the only difference is the power play. The only difference is the power play minutes.
But I'm talking about just impact so far, and 5-on-5 impact too, not least.
What do you notice so far about Carlson's game? Anything that you expected to see that you're not seeing? Anything you didn't expect to see that you are seeing?
No, I'm seeing pretty much the Carlson over. Like that game against Washington, he had those 2 keeps at the point, and he made some real in-tight moves out of traffic. And after that, the Caps were paralyzed. Every time he got the puck, like, oh, my God, what should we do? What's this guy going to do? So that was Carlson.
Any read on the goaltending so far, Mark?
Well, Nedeljkovic's certainly better than Kenny the Kangaroo. Casey DeSmith would have lost that game on Saturday. No doubt about that. No doubt. Nedeljkovic's pretty good, and Jari's played 2 strong games too.
Although Casey DeSmith did have a good game against Edmonton.
He came in late, I thought.
He actually did play the second game.
And they won anyway.
Stopped 37 of 40.
Well, they just don't know to shoot from – well, I guess they do. I was going to say they're not know to shoot from everywhere, but 40 shots is a lot.
How about their first game, huh? They're supposed to be so much more committed to defense to try to make a run at the cup, and they allowed 8 goals?
Their problem is the McDavid and Draisaitl double superstar model with no defense isn't going to work, and they need to trade Draisaitl to make it a better team. But they're just not going to do that, ergo they're probably not going to win.
Austin Matthews tonight against the Blackhawks and Connor Bedard. That's reason enough to watch. But then you got Matthews going for a 3rd hat trick in a row. You said on the podcast, and I'm with you, don't rule it out. He could get 2.
It's on ESPN Plus, though, Tim, so I'm not sure we can watch it a lot of places. I know I can because I just have hockey. But yeah, Matthews might get a 3rd straight hat trick. And the thing is, don't you think he'll be gunning for it? Don't you think he'll come out shooting like crazy in the first period?
Yeah,
He's going to think, okay, Chicago stinks, and we're going to win, so why not indulge this? Now, the Penguins might have thought that when they played Chicago the first night, and they lost, but that's how I'd be thinking if I were Matthews. Matthews is the best pure finisher in the league since Ovi, and now better than Ovi.
Ovi looked kind of slow at times in that Washington game, didn't he? Like chasing that one puck that ended up becoming a goal for the Penguins when he was trying to get out to the blue line.
I'm rooting for Ovi to break Gretzky's record. For sure I am. And I think he will, but I don't think it's going to be as automatic as people think. and they interviewed him on the bench, I think, before the game, and he didn't have his helmet on. And I said, boy, who let Ovi's grandpa on the bench? I mean, he's losing his hair. His hair is great. And I'm not making fun of the guy. There are very few opponents the Penguins have had that I have more respect for than I do Ovi. But, he's got to score 37 this year. What is it? No, 36 and 36 each year plus one to break Gretzky's record, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if all of a sudden he starts scoring 25, which aging on a worse team could happen, right? And then all of a sudden, it's a path that lasts 3 seasons. I would not be surprised to see that happen.
How about Wilson's antics at the end of the game going after Pettersson, since Pettersson never fights? I mean, it's just typical Wilson being Wilson, right?
Every time somebody goes after Pettersson, too, it's like a heavyweight. Like that does Laurier. Remember that?
Yeah.
I gave Marcus Nasla this advice once. Guys were going after him. I don't know if you remember, Tim. This is way back. Nazi was a very young player here, and Randy Cunneyworth, the ex-Penguin, was playing for Buffalo, and he chased Naslin around the ice. Naslin didn't want to fight. He literally chased him around the ice.
Yeah, that followed Naslin around for a while, didn't it?
I said to Naslin, I go, you should have turned around and put your stick right through his midsection. Made him into a friggin' hors d'oeuvre. And that way you'll get like 15 games, and they might not think you're tough, but they'll know you're crazy.
That's a good call. That's right. You fear what you can't understand and what you can't expect.
But I give Pettersson credit. He's hung in there. So full marks to him.
You think Matthews gets the Hart this year? Is this his year for that?
Well, you know who I'm betting on is Jack Hughes.
Okay.
I mean, not because I think he's the favorite, but that's exactly why.
It's good return.
Good value for money. It was like 18-1 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Matthews has the advantage of being a Leaf and not French, but he is American. And that all figures in. It just does. I mean, Mario should have had like 9 MVPs. So, I hope so. I think he's a great player as well. And I think pretty highly of him. He's a bit of a sourpuss too, though, like McDavid.
I heard your tribute to Bill Mazeroski on Friday when the guys were at the Wall in Oakland. We should have the Mark Madden show at the Wall in Oakland next year.
Yeah, let's not go overboard. Yeah, I think that's the greatest moment in Pittsburgh sports history, and I think it dwarfs whatever's second, which is probably the Immaculate Reception.
Even before Johnny Cueto dropping the ball, I know that's one of your favorites.
I don't know that that's top 50.
All right, let's get to some comments here. Let's
By the way, Tim, how some lesser lights in our profession try to brand that as this big moment. You know why? They're trying to get it identified with them branding it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's their newer generation, right?
Yeah, but they'll be out of work in January anyway.
Eric says, I know it's a small sample size, but that second line is looking pretty good.
Well, it is a small sample size. I got big heat on Twitter last night between Eagles and Vince Gill was the opening act. A surprisingly good set of hillbilly crap kicking. And I'm sure he's very good. That's not my kind of music, but it was good. Anyway, somebody said, well, Madden's so stupid he wanted Trocheck ahead of Malkin. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember you saying that, yeah.
I still do. I mean, Gino had 2 good games, but I'd rather have Trocheck at this point in his career than Malkin at his. But I also understand why they kept the gang together, and that doesn't bother me at all either. Tim, if they had Trocheck on that power play in the bumper, he's the best bumper in the league, that power play would be fixed in a hurry. And it's pretty good the last couple games anyway.
And by the way, we haven't spoken since that game against the Blackhawks for the opener. That was my first time seeing the Jumbotron. I hadn't gone to the preseason home games. That thing is massive, and not just the size, Mark, but the bass in the sound system is just unbelievable.
And you got the new Selena Pompiani yelling like crazy. Tim, if he keeps yelling all the time, you know what's going to happen to him? He'll be on ESPN from 2 to 4 weekdays. It'll become the 8-hour nonstop block of yelling and mugging.
Jeremy says at least Erik Karlsson played well this weekend. I thought the big thing for Karlsson is his control and poise with the puck is so obvious. And his ability, like that whole thing about how he feeds the slot. He had that highest, that kind of really stat nerd stat about how well he feeds the slot. That's true. I mean, he's got an innate ability to open up passing lanes to get the puck to high danger areas.
and feeds it vertically. Okay, like it's easier to feed the slot when you swing wide.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you have more options if you're at the point or in the high slot and you feed it to the low slot. You can pass in any direction. It's like in soccer. This is a dumb comparison, but you see guys swing wide or even corner kicks or set plays where sometimes they're dangerous, but most of the time the defense handles it pretty easily because there's only one place to go with it.
Hey, Mark,
when you're up top and you make plays, there's many options.
Not to jump around here too much, but I forgot something that I wanted to bring up, and this has to do with football. Did you hear what Goodell said about the prospect of putting the Super Bowl in London? How the hell is that going to work?
No, I mean, is that being considered?
Well, it had been considered before, and then it got shot down, and Goodell kept it alive when he was asked about it at a fan forum. And I don't even know logistically how they executed. Do they put the Super Bowl?
I don't know why you do it. It's a uniquely American spectacle.
Well, not only that, but like, are you going to start the game at 11:30 in England, or are you going to have the game start at a reasonable time in England and have it not be in prime time in America?
Yeah, maybe he's just talking. I don't know. I mean, Shad Khan, the owner of Jacksonville, is probably pushing for that. I think he's going to move the Jaguars to London at some point. That might be the precursor to a Super Bowl there.
Yeah, I think that will happen. Then they got to figure out the schedule. Man, every time a team waits to go over, they lose, though, don't they? I think didn't Tennessee wait to go over, and the Ravens beat them? And now the Ravens are coming back, refused the bye. I don't know why they would do that. I would have taken the bye here.
Tim, I think it would be great if they had a Super Bowl at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, because that way somebody would finally win something there.
2 from Ron. He brought up Casey Smith and his saves against Edmonton. He also says Tua for MVP. Fins up. Boy, they got down 14-0 and came back like no problem yesterday. Miami really is a fun team to watch.
They're a handful, aren't they? Like to beat them, you have to outscore them. You cannot hold a lead. You have to extend the lead, like Buffalo did.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be a tough out. If you ask me to predict who would win between them and Kansas City right now, I would pick Miami.
Richard says, so far the bottom 6 isn't producing offensively, but at least they aren't a liability when they take the ice like they were last season.
You know what was weird? I thought in the Washington game, the bottom line, the Achari line, had a terrible game, but they had that one good shift. I think it was in the second that kind of got the Penguins going, so people overestimated how they played.
Well, let's get to some of those guys individually. Is there a guy in that bottom 6? We talked about the lack of scoring, but when it comes to forechecking ability, defensive ability, puck possession, any one of those 6 stand out to you that's doing the best job?
No. No, they're all like just, I mean, O'Connor, in terms of all around play, but they're just a bunch of guys. I mean, I would have Colin White. I would bring him up at some point, the guy who played every playoff game for Florida last year, and they sent him to Wilkes. I would bring him up. I think he's the best bet among any of the guys but Eller and O'Connor to make impact.
Jeremy says Sean McVay has a coaching tree, unlike Tomlin. Yeah, I don't care too much about who's elsewhere right now. I get your point, but I'm just worried about Tomlin being outcoached by McVay coming up this weekend. Like, they showed Mark this weekend, and it was just Arizona. I get it, but they're 3-3. They're basically at the same spot where the Steelers are in terms of record and standings. They can throw and they can run. They run enough when they need to. They can definitely throw to whoever they want to throw to.
They're not favored for no reason, Tim.
Yeah.
By the way, there was a poll on Twitter. Rank the Steelers coaches 1, 2, 3. I ranked Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Walt Kiesling.
By the way, Aaron Donald going up against the middle of that Steelers offensive line. We talked at length about all those pass rushers on the outside over the first 3 weeks. Let's see how they handle Donald and the Rams in the middle of the defensive line.
What kind of health is Aaron Donald in right now?
I don't know. It's a good question. I didn't see what he did last week.
Seems like he's always a little beat up, don't it?
Yeah, he's gotten to that stage of his career. Yeah. Hold on. Let me get to another question here because I'm looking up that.
And that Steelers offensive line is not good. If you had to narrow down the most disappointing part of the Steelers season this year, who or what was supposed to be good that ain't, it's the offensive line.
Oh, Jeremy wants to know, Mark, you drinking coffee or tea, and what kind?
Today, it's tea.
Okay. Do you drink like heavily caffeinated tea?
Decaffeinated tea, right. Red Rose through the Keurig. And I'm trying to cut. The reason I'm drinking tea is I'm drinking it with honey because I've been getting an upset stomach, and I think part of the reason might be I use far too much artificial sweetener. Far too much. Like when I go to Dunkin' and get an extra large decaf, I get 8 Splendas. That's ridiculous.
So you're using natural honey then?
Yes.
All right. Oh,
yes.
By the way, Donald, 5 tackles, 3 right at the line. He didn't have any tackles for loss. He did some good things yesterday. 3 solo.
But he's getting his snaps in, right?
Yeah, he hasn't had a sack in the last 2 weeks. He's got 2.5 total for the season.
Yeah, how old is he? He's 30-something, right? I mean,
32.
Yeah,
32.
I mean, I'm not saying he's washed up, but defensive lineman, that's a different kind of wear and tear because it's constant. Every single play, something happens.
Yeah, and it really does speak to Cam Hayward's ability to stay healthy until this year.
Yes, and what a smart player Cam is. By the way, Tim, coffee cup, Conneaut Lake Park.
There you go.
The park's not there. The cup still is.
One from Ba here. Pitt football pulled off their yearly upset. Glad to see it was during the gold out game. But let's be honest, every Pitt game is a gold out game at Acrisure Stadium. Yeah, that they have this knack, don't they, for pulling off that big upset after their season's already kind of gone to the toilet?
Well, Tim, Pitt clearly needed a Penn State quarterback to get a big win. Okay, with Christian, whatever his name is, I've seen it pronounced a bunch of times, and I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care. And it makes you wonder if he shouldn't have been the quarterback from day one.
Sam brings up the most important point. Rest in peace, Suzanne Summers. Were you a Three's Company fan, Mark?
I don't know what kid wasn't back then. Yeah, she was amazing. And she was kind of a pioneer in that she left Three's Company because they wouldn't pay her equal to John Ritter. Like the men on those shows got way more than the women back when. And I mean, Ritter was the cornerstone of that show, but Suzanne Summers was almost as important. And, she was like that attainable kind of hot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then the two girls, what the 2 girls that came after her, one was her cousin, and then the next one was the cousin's friend, right?
Something like that. Who cared? But Suzanne Summers, like, you looked at Heather Locklear, you'd figure, okay, I got no chance. Super hot, but no chance. Same with Charlie's Angels, right?
Yeah.
Suzanne Summers, she was like a 9.5. And that half made you think, okay, maybe.
If John Ritter could do it, what's the name of the bar? The Regal Beagle.
John Ritter didn't.
That's right. Didn't. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
He didn't sleep with either of them ever.
The
Regal Beagle.
Yeah, the Regal Beagle was the bar. What was Don Knotts' character's name?
Mr. Farley?
Mr. Farley, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Farley, F-U-R. And then he was succeeded by the other guy.
Yeah, the couple that lived downstairs. I can't remember what the new landlords that came in after that.
Yeah, they weren't. I mean, the original incarnation with Don Knotts and Suzanne Summers was the vintage part of the show. And then Suzanne Summers went on to be in a show called Step by Step.
Yeah.
Which lasted for 7 years. And it was kind of a latter-day Brady Bunch. Like her and her 3 kids married the guy and his 3 kids. It says here, Chris says the Ropers were first. Norman Fell, that was.
Norman Fell, that's right.
He was first, then Mr. Furley. Okay, well, I got it in the wrong order. It's been a long time.
Speaking of the 70s, Mark, how was the Eagles show?
Well, Tim, I remain firmly convinced now more than ever that the Rocky Mountain way is better than the way we had. That speaks for itself. It was great. They have this kind of aura and this precision about them that makes them really unique among the heritage groups. And their song list is foolproof. They indulge Joe Walsh a lot. But then again, to be honest, his songs have the most energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he didn't sing on many Eagles songs. He sang a couple ballads. The only Eagles song they did last night with Joe Walsh on it was In the City, which was from that movie, The Warriors. But he did Funk 49 from the James Gang and did Life's Been Good and Rocky Mountain Way from his solo stuff.
Did they do Seven Bridges Road?
That's the opener.
It was the opener?
Yeah.
Oh, great. That's my favorite Eagles song.
That traditionally was their warm-up song before they came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so once upon a time, way back when, they said this would make a good opener, and they do it that way a lot.
Where did this one rank in your concert tour from the summer? It's kind of a different show, right?
Yeah,
More
like
laid back.
I said, yeah. Yeah, it's one of the few I've been at where the people sat down.
Yeah, that's what I remember about the last Eagles show that I went to in, what was that, like 2013 or 14?
You know who got
Pace Arena?
you know who got the 3 standing ovations
Who?
until the end when they all did? Joe Walsh.
Yeah, makes sense.
The crowd was into him. You know what I love that he does too? Like, I put up a picture of him playing on Twitter, and I felt guilty because he campaigns against that. Okay, on stage, he said last night before he was introducing "Life's Been Good," right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Now I want you to not text and don't watch us through your phone because we're a lot bigger up here." and I was in one of his solo shows in Vegas at the House of Blues, relatively small. He did a residency there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were playing a song, and there was a guy in the front row who was holding the camera up, taping it, right? And he turns to his band and just stops the song. And he leans over to the guy, which, it's defeated itself because it was a big, good moment for the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "What are you doing? I'm right here." So I like that. But it's a great band. I mean, it's not quite the same without Glenn Fry there.
Uh-huh.
And using his kid, who's a talented singer, that feels forced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can't complain about it either because I'm sure, it's so cliche to say that's what Glenn would want, but I'm sure it is. It's a great show.
Well, for Glenn Fry, for Joe Walsh, for Don Knotts, and for the Ropers, we are Mark Madden and Tim Benz.
What if Don Knotts had replaced Don Henley?
This is Madden Benz Unfiltered. We'll be back next week after the Rams game. Listen to Mark 3 o'clock today, and read me Breakfast with Benz Monday through Friday here at Trib Live.